The business case analysis team is working on defining who will be involved and what the problem statement is. Now that we have a high-level understanding, we need to explore the potential impact of the project. For example, this project will help us understand what kind of changes might happen and the impact it could have on technology, people, structure, and more. Let's look at the WP project. It will affect Smith Consulting in several ways. This includes changes to the organization's tools, processes, rules, and responsibilities, all due to the implementation of the WP project. For instance, the project will streamline administrative and payroll processes. This will make the processes more efficient, reducing the burden on managers and giving employees more autonomy to manage their own tasks. This marks a change in roles. Tasks that were previously done by managers will now be handled by employees. In addition to process changes, there will also be impacts on roles and responsibilities. Technology will also be impacted, with necessary hardware and software updates as part of the technology migration. We will follow a specific approach and phases for this project, and an overview of the project, including cost and performance considerations, will need to be detailed. The cost of the project should be understood, along with how it will impact performance. Resources like reporting, timesheets, software, system maintenance, and staff will also be part of the plan. These areas of focus are identified by the team. Assumptions and constraints must also be clearly outlined. For instance, an assumption could be that all staff will be trained to handle their respective data entry, timesheet, and reporting tasks. These activities, which were once handled by managers, will now be the responsibility of employees, so training is essential. The assumption is that training will occur on the platform created for the project. One constraint may be the limited IT resources available to support both the development of this project and other ongoing IT initiatives. This could have a clear impact on resources, potentially affecting quality if not managed well. This, in turn, could affect project milestones. Milestones are important and can include the completion of various project phases and the key outputs expected from each phase. Strategic alignment is also essential and was covered earlier. The project aligns with the goal of improving record keeping and using new technology. From a technology perspective, the solution aims to bring benefits, including improved efficiency. The cost-benefit analysis has been done, and the best solution needs to be recommended. This could involve migrating to a new platform or building one in-house. Now, moving to the business benefit management plan. This plan is linked to the business case and should also be aligned with the company's own templates. Each company might have its own format for such plans. Under the organizational process assets, companies might use standard templates for the benefit management plan. It's important to remember that the benefits of a project won't be immediately clear. Even though a plan is created in advance, the actual benefits start to become visible once the product is launched in the market or used by the end users. After the project is completed and the product is live, the benefit management plan becomes active. At this stage, you begin measuring the benefits and comparing them to the performance goals set in the plan. Typically, this plan would include measurable benefits, such as a 20% cost reduction in the first 12 months or a 15% reduction in staff within the first 2 years. These are examples of benefits that could be part of the business benefit management plan. In terms of strategic alignment, the goal might be to achieve cost savings or efficiency gains within a specific time frame, such as reducing costs over a set number of months or achieving efficiency within the first year. So once again, it's very clear. It was mentioned that these benefits could occur within 12 months, within 2 years, or even longer. These are benefits for the owners. For each of these benefits that were mentioned, we need to identify who will be responsible for these benefits and how they will be tracked. What are the metrics to track these benefits? Additionally, we can also mention if you come across any assumptions or risks. You can create a plan for this, and the project manager will ensure that the project activities align with this plan. Now, these were the two main documents from the business side. Once these documents are in place, the project sponsor will hand over the project charter to the project manager. The project charter will typically include high-level scope items, the background and context behind why the project was initiated, the business case, the sponsor, and key stakeholders. It will also outline the project phases, the acceptance criteria, and other important details such as the project's start and end dates, key milestones, and who has the authority to sign off on certain decisions. The project charter may also include information about cost, as mentioned in the business case. Stay tuned because I will show you an actual project charter example, which will help you understand it better. The project management plan is another document that I'll show you. It contains various subsidiary management plans, such as scope management, risk management, and quality management. It also covers how we will manage schedules, stakeholders, and other aspects of the project. In simple terms, the project management plan is made up of all these subsidiary management plans and will include details on how the project will be executed, monitored, and controlled. Now, how do we measure the success of the project? Ultimately, we are doing the project to gain some benefit from it. There are various ways we can measure success. One way to measure success is by completing the project within the set constraints, whether it's achieving all the scope, completing the project on time, staying within the budget, meeting quality parameters, optimally using resources, or effectively managing risks. So, one way to measure success is by assessing how well the project performed in these constraints. I also mentioned earlier that if we measure the success of the project manager, one way to do that is by how well they manage these project constraints. Another way to measure project success is by achieving the project objectives. For example, if the project objective is to deliver certain benefits, then whether we achieve those benefits within the budget and schedule, with minimal risks or issues, is an important measure of success. The benefit of a project or product will come once the project is completed, whether the outcome is a product, service, or any other result we discussed earlier. Once the product is launched in the market, the benefits will start coming in through sales. If it's a service, it will enhance customer satisfaction. The objective of any project is to achieve the desired outcome, which can be financial or non-financial. For example, achieving better customer satisfaction may not always be directly measurable and can be difficult to quantify. It may not always be entirely tangible, but there are ways to measure it to some extent. Let's say you're working on a project to shift from a traditional mindset to an agile one. By adopting a mindset that responds better to customer demands, the goal is to perform better in the market. If you achieve that, then your project has been successful. Sometimes, you might be obligated to follow certain regulations set by the government. If you start a project to meet those regulatory requirements, you may end up avoiding fines by ensuring compliance. The avoidance of fines is a type of cost-saving benefit that helps achieve project objectives. Apart from that, projects are often initiated to meet governance or compliance requirements. If a project meets these regulatory standards within the designated time frame, it helps avoid fines, ensuring that you don't face unnecessary penalties. This is an example of cost avoidance as an objective. Acceptance criteria for a project are often mentioned in the project charter, which defines what constitutes successful project completion. The success criteria are agreed upon between you and the business and should be measurable. You must define the potential impacts if the success criteria are not met. This could also affect how the project aligns with the organization's strategy and business goals. For example, in a project like the one at WP Smith Consulting, the aim was to align with organizational objectives such as cost reduction, gaining efficiency, and improving employee retention. Such alignment is also a success factor for the project. It's important to understand that when measuring the success of a project, people often focus on scope, cost, and time, but there are many other factors to consider. These elements need to be factored in to truly determine the success of a project. In today's tutorial, we are going to talk about some of the basic aspects of project management. I'm sure you must have a few questions, like what is a project? What is project management? What are some of the advantages of project management? What skills are required for project management? What are the phases of project management? What knowledge areas and processes are involved? And, of course, what are some of the project management methodologies? So, in today's session, we are going to talk about all these agenda items one by one. What is a project? I'm sure you'll agree, and you must have read that a project is nothing but a temporary endeavor that we undertake in order to achieve an output. That particular output is nothing but a product, a service, or a result by the end of the project. So a project will definitely have a fixed timeline. Whenever you undertake any project, you will have a fixed start date and a fixed end date. I still remember during my early experience in project management, I was working on a market research project for one of the pharmaceutical companies. The project was conducted in a particular region with a core team of people going into the market to collect the data. The project lasted for about 4 to 6 months, so it had a start date and an end date, and of course, it had a predefined objective. A project always has some timelines associated with it. Apart from that, a project will always consume certain resources. When we talk about resources in a project, we don't just mean human resources, but also other material resources or any other resources associated with the project. It could even be money, human resources, or material resources, depending on the type of project you're working on. The resources will vary based on the kind of project. For example, in this case of our market research project, we had a team of 6 people working on the project. Material resources were involved, as well as human resources. Apart from that, there was also a budget associated with the project, for those 6 people to travel across multiple locations within the region and reach out to different target audiences in order to gather the data. That's just one small example. Projects also use certain tools because a project involves a number of activities. In order to perform those activities, it's important for us to use certain tools at times, depending on the complexity of the project. If the team is spread across different regions, it's very important to use tools that help us collaborate with team members. Certain special tools and techniques are required for the project, especially if the project is complex. In a simple project, you might even be able to perform it using basic tools like Microsoft Excel or templates created in Microsoft Word. You can also use email as a medium to communicate, but of course, verbal communication is also very important. For a complex project, many more things need to be involved. The number of activities and stakeholders will be greater. A complex project could even be part of a larger program or portfolio, aligned with organizational objectives. For these projects, it is essential to use relevant tools in order to be more effective and efficient. When you execute a project, you will always have a team of people working with you. When we talk about a team, we are talking about a cross-functional team. I don't expect people from only one function to be part of the project. For example, if you're working on an IT project and forming a team, you would need people who can perform various activities related to the project, like analysis, requirements gathering, system analysis, coding, testing, and deployment. These functions need to be integrated, and that's why you need a diverse team. A cross-functional team will help you complete all the project activities based on the type of project you're working on. To summarize, a project will always have certain timelines, including a start date and an end date. Will consume resources, material resources, and human resources. The other resources the project will use certain tools depending on the complexity of the project and the number of people involved. Obviously, the project is executed with a team of people, even with different stakeholders. So, if you talk about projects, why do projects get started? Let's discuss some of these reasons. One reason could be demand in the market, as I gave you an example of the market research project. So, it could be decided that a certain project is undertaken to analyze the demand in a particular market. Once you analyze the demand in that market, you would then launch a product. The example I was quoting was a market research project undertaken for a pharmaceutical company so they can launch a pharmaceutical product into the market. A team of people was working in that region to ascertain and analyze the demand for a particular pharmaceutical product. Once there is demand, then obviously you would go ahead and launch that product into that market. So, a project could get initiated as a result of demand in the market. Sometimes, you would manufacture certain products because the demand for that product is increasing in the market. For example, you might come across cars that are more affordable in the range of anywhere between 2 to 5 lakhs. You will find that the market for such cars is rising, as the demand for small vehicles, particularly hatchbacks, is increasing. As a result, you may undertake a project to manufacture or launch a new car in the market. It could be a strategic opportunity as well. You could strategically decide at a company level. You may be working in the healthcare sector and now want to expand into the pharmaceutical sector to launch certain pharmaceutical products into the market. You could seek that as a strategic opportunity and invest money. Then, you would convert that resource into something tangible and tap into that market opportunity. So, you are basically entering a completely new line of business, and that was the strategic decision you have made. It could also be due to customer requirements. Typically, you will find in IT projects that once you launch a certain application, and once customers start using it, you will get a lot of requests to enhance that application based on current usage. Then, you undertake enhancement projects, which are essentially conducted so that you can incorporate the features that have come as a result of customer requirements. These are additional requirements that customers would like to see in the current product. Such projects are also undertaken if there is a change in technology or if there is an advancement in technology. You might have seen this in IT projects. I've seen teams changing the entire technical landscape from one technology architecture to another, which makes it easier to maintain, scale, and stabilize. For example, I've seen many projects moving to cloud-based platforms or using analytics, so they can move to a new technology that is more intuitive to use. Technology advancement could be another reason why projects are undertaken. Another reason could be legal requirements. I've worked on many projects that were initiated due to legal or compliance requirements. For instance, we were working on certain reports to be furnished to regulators every year, every 6 months, every month, or every quarter. The project was initiated to create an application that could gather data from input systems, analyze the data, create the reports, and then submit them to the regulators. So projects can also be initiated due to legal requirements. These are some of the reasons why we initiate projects. Now, why do projects end? As we discussed earlier, in the previous slide, projects always have a start date and end. So, why would a project end? Certainly, there are a couple of reasons you would find. One is, of course, when the project objectives are achieved. For example, if I've undertaken a project for some legal requirement, and I have completed the project, its launch was for a one-time legal requirement or maybe twice a year, and now it's no longer required. That means the particular project's objective has been achieved, and we can end that project. Sometimes, I've seen projects initiated but then scrapped in the middle because they are no longer required. The objective might be challenged by the organization, become obsolete, or no longer be needed. You may come across such scenarios as well. I came across a very big program in one of the large and complex organizations. The idea was to integrate many applications together and see everything at one place. It started, but the scale of the program was so high that it couldn't sustain longer, and the whole program had to be stopped. So even though we started with some vision, we couldn't achieve it, and as a result, we had to stop working on the program. You will come across such reasons where projects are stopped midway. The other confusion people might have is to understand the difference between a project and operations. Let's quickly take a look at the difference between projects and operations. Some of these things we have already covered. Projects are temporary. It has a start date and an end date, so it's a temporary endeavor undertaken to produce a product or result. Or to provide some service. Projects have defined started and ended. That's another thing which we already spoke about. Tasks are unique to a project. So every project that we get is unique. So when you undertake a project, you are basically creating an outcome, which is a unique product, unique service, or some unique result that you're producing by the end of the project. A project is also undertaken in order to achieve a unique goal. So there should be some unique goal, which is actually drafted at the beginning of the project. It's predefined. As I mentioned, the goal could be to identify the potential in the market. The goal could be to fulfill the client's or a regulatory requirement of a bank for which you have undertaken a project. So you will always have some predefined goal and then you undertake a project based on the goal. These are typical characteristics of a project. So when we undertake a project, you will definitely be able to relate some of these characteristics to those projects. However, if you look at the operation activities, they are completely different. The operation activities are more routine in nature. Those are more ongoing activities and the assessments that need to be performed are mostly repetitive. They are cyclical. You'll have to perform those activities maybe every week or every month or every year. Those are cyclical activities, and the whole objective of undertaking or doing the operational activities is to sustain in the market, to sustain the business. Let's take a quick example. You are working on an IT application or IT product. Now, you have created the product and launched it in the market. Once you launch it in the market, people start using it, customers start using it, and then you have to also kick off the operational activities so that you can start supporting the product, which is being used by your customers. And then your operational activities will begin when customers start using the product. I'm sure they might come across certain incidents, you might come across certain issues. They might come across certain problems while using the product. Then they will raise those problems, those issues as incidents, and it will be assigned to you, to the operations team. Then it's investigated and fixed. So those are like operation-related activities which are going to be part of the product once the product is launched. Then the operational activities will begin, and your project activities will stop once you accomplish a project to launch that IT product. So then the project is ended. What will start is the operational activities. So the key here is to make sure that there is a proper handover between the project activities and the operational activities. And therefore, you will find that the operations team works very, very closely towards the end of the project. Not only that, these days we ensure that the operational activities or operation team members or operation team are involved very early in the project activity itself so that they would know what project we are working on and what product we are creating. So both activities are certainly important, project as well as operations, but they certainly differ in terms of why they are performed as well as the certain characteristics that they poses.